I hope you're ready to lose. You can go first.
Oh man, I got a good hand. I'll open up with a revolving switch yard to give myself some options or to see if he's going to counter anything. Next, I'll play Night Express Knight, using its special effect. That'll allow me to summon Heavy Freight Train Deracrane. And with those two on the field, that'll allow me to special summon Super Express Bullet Train. Then I'll use those three to special summon Super Dimensional Robot Galaxy Destroyer to pop his back row. Finally, that'll allow me to special summon Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Juggernaut Lieb. I'm not gonna give him a chance to counterattack.
Man, I really wish I could just try out deck ideas with a video game. Hi, Konami. How are you? It literally looks like you pulled that out of your ass! Okay, I'll take it. I'll have it, I'll play it, I might even enjoy it. Is he gone? Hi everyone, my name's Gheeotine, and welcome to The Gaming Gheeotine, where I execute the poorly executed. Now, some of you may or may not know, I thoroughly enjoy the Yu-Gi-Oh! Card game. I've been playing it ever since I want to say all the way almost back in middle school, back in the very early 2000s. I played it a heck of a lot, sort of got out of it midway through high school, recently got back into it within the last year or two, and I play with friends pretty regularly. But when I say I got back into it, I mean I got back into it hard. In the couple years since I did finally get back into it, I've acquired literally thousands of cards. And with that sheer number of cards, I've also made over 30 decks. Sometimes when I have a day off, there's nothing better than a lazy Sunday with just me and a handful of cards trying to pick out a viable strategy or just something I think is going to be a little fun. But the downside of acquiring so many cards is that a lazy afternoon of organizing and building decks can result in several messes around your living space. So while enjoyable, it's not always ideal. So I figure one of my best places to try and express my love for Yu-Gi-Oh! Is to play the video games, and believe it or not, there are a lot of them. From the cursory research I did, there's at least 20 different video games that I could find, ranging on systems from the PlayStation 1 and 2, Game Boy Advance, Nintendo DS, PC, and PlayStation Portable, with my collection sticking mostly to the Nintendo handheld versions. But it's not just older systems. I was mostly counting games that only had physical entries. Even phones are making it so that you can bring Yu-Gi-Oh! On the go. But today specifically, we'll be focusing on Yu-Gi-Oh! Legacy of the Duelist, Link Evolution, which I've actually played this in one manner of speaking before. Which is to say I've actually played Legacy of the Duelist, a digital game released on Steam, Xbox One, and PlayStation 4. It's not a terrible game in its own right, but by modern standards it's now fairly outdated, due to operating off of a previous rule set that's become obsolete as more cards have been introduced to the series. Now I'm not going to go super in-depth, but I will explain the basic rules of Yu-Gi-Oh! You summon monsters to the field, and the overall goal is to try and reduce your opponent's life points to 0. This is mainly done with monsters that have certain requirements to summon. You can modify the conditions under which battles take place using spell and trap cards to either enhance your own abilities or hinder your opponents. There is far more I could actually go into detail on that front, but I'd probably be here for over half an hour just to explain the various rules of the modern game. And like I said, this game doesn't even have the most current rule set. Now I have to ask the question, has Konami added enough to make this worth a standalone purchase above just what they already released? Starting out, we're presented with some very simple and easy-to-navigate menus. I also like how the thumbsticks make the fish eyes rotate. But before I discuss the next part, it's worth mentioning that Yu-Gi-Oh! Is not just a card game, but it's actually more of a multimedia juggernaut, with a manga and anime series that has actually been around and has been the basis for the creation of the card game. According to the creator, when he created the card game for story reasons, he got a lot of messages from people actually wanting to make it, and many people that have never played Yu-Gi-Oh! Know the anime. In fact, the anime is still running to this day.
with a new series being introduced every time there's a major rule set change. Now, I mention all of this because Yu-Gi-Oh! Legacy of the Duelist Link Evolution has a story mode that encompasses every single anime series that's been released thus far. But there's a bit of a caveat to that statement. Everything is presented with static images of the characters and text boxes. None of the amazing animations, none of the really endearing story or character developments, pretty much the laziest means of story delivery outside of a dating sim.
If I gotta be kinda honest, it's really boring.
And for the most part, it seems to be a one-to-one repackaging of the original Legacy of the Duelist. But to be fair, most of the people getting this game are likely going to be getting it for one thing: the card game. And if you want to unlock the majority of the cards in the game, you are going to have to grind yourself to oblivion. You have to buy packs with in-game money that you earn. You unlock in-game currency by playing story missions and mission objectives. Although I should probably be thankful that Konami didn't start bilking us for microtransactions. You can also earn currency playing online, but I avoid doing that for the same reason I've avoided trying to go to tournaments when playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Many people take it way too seriously and only make bleeding edge meta decks, which for me just isn't very fun. I've never taken the game all that seriously, and have literally made decks for reasons such as the fact that I can do a halfway decent Weevil Underwood impression.
Using my perfectly ultimate great moth, I'll finally be able to destroy that infernal Joey Wheeler!
As I said before, this version is basically just Legacy of the Duelist repackaged, with some rule and feel adjustments to make it so that this thing is operating off of the most recent rule set. Now, I spent dozens of hours playing this and grinding the story and missions, strictly for the sake of unlocking all the cards that I could. But once I had unlocked a copy of at least one of every card, I came across a rather startling realization.
Now, this last part is what I consider Konami's laziest and scummiest parts coming to light again. They released the game, and then didn't give it any kind of outstanding updates. And by the time the game was already released, there were already cards released in the TCG that outdated this version.
Now, I don't know if I've ever really talked about this part of myself, but I pay a lot of attention to the various aspects of the video game industry. And as such, I am well acquainted with the practices of Konami, or rather I should say, their screw-ups. In spite of the fact that they own a lot of my favorite intellectual properties, I hold no love for Konami. I followed their dealings and practices over the years, thanks a lot in part to YouTubers like Jim Sterling, and various other video gaming pundits. And I'm just gonna go over a list of some of their various screw-ups over the years. The mishandling of the Silent Hill HD collection, their treatment and alienation of Hideo Kojima, the scrapping of Silent Hills, the mandated takedown of PT off the PlayStation storefront, butchering their beloved IPs for the sake of cash grabs in pachinko machines, filing spurious DMCA takedowns of individuals that reported on their shenanigans, the releasing of inferior ports as the most modern iterations for PC, and their absolute disregard for artistic integrity, with the releases of absolute garbage like Metal Gear Survive and Contra Rogue Core. And speaking of Metal Gear Survive, who the f*** charges $10 for a save slot? Konami, get the f*** out of the game industry. Trust me when I say that I have no love for Konami, and I hold them in the same amount of contempt as the various executives and decision makers under the banners of EA and Activision Blizzard. Now I'm going and getting a little bit distracted. And I really want to finish this video because Pokemon Home came out last night and I was up until 2 AM doing that. Yu-Gi-Oh! Legacy of the Duelist Link Evolution doesn't really come across as sloppy, more than just lazy. They took a product off the storefront that they had essentially already made, tweaked it so it could be rebranded as the most modern version, and threw it out to the general public without any long-term plans. That train deck I used in the opening skit, I was desperately hoping to have some of the cards that I used in the video game itself. And heck, Konami could have released a season pass that I'm sure a lot of people would have paid for, considering this game didn't come out at the full $60 price tag. But I'm sure that would have required effort and planning. Adding cards on a monthly basis, so that people who liked playing the card game but didn't have the convenience of being able to play with their friends a lot would still be able to test out deck ideas. Konami was once capable of greatness. Silent Hills 1 through 4 are amazing experiences. I not too long ago got into the Castlevania series, thanks in part to the Netflix adaptation, but I've since come to love games like the original Castlevania, Dawn of Sorrow, and the new games from the original creator, Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. To attach a metaphor to Konami's modern attitudes, they're basically a drunken horse's ass in the video games industry. But they run so many different things that they probably don't even care anymore, and that's the biggest thing. They don't care.
This is by no stretch the worst video game I've ever played, certainly not by Konami standards, but their lazy practices certainly do come to light. And when you realize that there are better options out there that are made by the community, that are released for free, there's really no reason to have this other than just as a historical documentation of the various rule sets that have been in effect over the years. And no, I didn't misspeak. There are free alternatives, updated and maintained by the Yu-Gi-Oh community, people that actually love and maintain these things out of passion for what they do, as opposed to the strictly corporate culture that now rules Konami. Now, I'll fully admit that most of these last few minutes have been me just strictly bashing on Konami, but getting back to some final thoughts on Legacy of the Duelist Link Evolution, it's not necessarily bad. At the end of the day, it's entirely functional, but just kind of bare bones and lazy, with plenty of areas that you could see potential for improvement. It's ultimately just disappointing. Like a teacher seeing a student with massive potential, only handing in B's and C's, because that's all they care to get away with. So while this game is certainly not worth executing... I think I actually broke something. I wasn't going to execute that thing, but it's probably gone and done that itself now. Much like Konami's attitudes. Just a heads up, I may be disrupting the upload schedule, because I might have some pretty significant changes in my life going on. I'll keep you posted. I occasionally post stuff on Twitter in case you're more interested. But until next time, thanks for watching, and God bless all of ya.